Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GANs processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
I think Salamia wanted to ask a question. Salamia, are you with us?
Yes, I am here. Thank you, Mr. Mark, Mr. Anderson. I have a request for my Romanian community. They kindly ask me to ask you, and especially Mr. Keshe, what are these kind of guns related with quantic computers maybe, and DNA computers? These guns are quantic guns, binary guns, twin guns, and molecular guns. As far I know, molecular computer works with DNA, and also we have nowadays quantic computers, very, very expensive. But I'm wondering if these kind of guns are related with computers or what they are. Please, Mr. Keshe, can you illuminate us, clarify this? We find this on book number 2 at page 51. Last Friday. Yesterday, I mean.
You're talking of quantum computing?
Yes, I wrote there is quantum guns, molecular guns, binary guns, and third is twin guns. We found on 51 page on the book number 2 related to the structure of light.
Would any knowledge seeker like to respond to Salamia? And I see Danilo has his hand up, so we'll go to him next. But let's see if we can answer part or all of Salamia's question. I know Mr. Keshe has referred to the GANS computers, the GANS balls, the GANS brain, and they're so powerful that they'll be able to contain all the information just in one little portion of this new GANS computers, which I guess will be introduced in the future to us. Probably for the deeper space travel, but maybe for use here on this planet as well.
Good evening, if I can come in.
Always.
The molecular GANs is what we have already, which is CO2, for example. Very few atomic or singular gases has ever been produced by knowledge seekers And when they do it, they most of the time don't realize it. Mainly it's done on the tritium or deuterium side. So when we speak about the molecular GANs, it's a CO2, Zn, which means more than one atomic plasma behavior. And the same is with the others, is where we take single fields of a plasma, which comes from a plasma. If you look at the North Pole, you have millions of fields coming out of the North Pole. We take one of them, and that becomes what we call the field that we use as part of, and then we use combination of these. This, what we call GANs plasma as a molecular, is already in use in the new reactors enhancements, the new version of new enhancement, which is getting set up. So these are derivations from the fields of the plasma itself and how plasmas interact. Two plasmas, when you put, we don't see like atomic structure, atom of hydrogen or oxygen that molecularly they make H2O. In plasma physics, one sits within the other and radiates at the same time, but in two levels, but collectively as one, which means the plasma of the hydrogen sits within the plasma of the oxygen and radiates according to its strength to a certain point. It's a plasma within the plasma, which creates its own gravitational magnetic field, its own pull, and the behavior we see with the use of the ganses. When you use CH3, you have three different strengths of hydrogen within the structure of the CH3 in the magnetic field plasma condition strength. And in the future, we use this quite a lot. We use this massively quite a lot. And the new enhancement units use this technology, which is field strength comparison, but in the strength of the, what we call the molecular plasma. And then we go into a different strength of a different combination of the use of the plasma. The new enhancement units are entirely, totally different than what has been seen up to now. Because we don't release the technology anymore the way it used to be, as I said many times, or because of their abuse. But the new enhancement units released by Keshe Foundation, especially in the units which are coming up and setting up, there is no way anyone can replicate the system. Impossibilities. Absolute impossibilities for the performance we've seen. We are already over a few weeks handling the new enhancement unit, which the body enhancement unit, which was in the original exhibition center in Design Center in Leeds. So much has been discovered even by being there on its own, and new knowledge, new technology has been developed because and through them. But we don't release these technologies because the plasma technology as a molecular enhancement unit is a science which we are not releasing. We don't see any need for it to do because these are what we call details which many knowledge seekers will not be able to understand. We're now developing their transmutation and transportation systems that are on the, literally in the lab getting built up. And uses these technologies. If you go back, if I can change the subject slightly, but in a way, expanding on the same thing, if you go back on the teaching of the Thursday, and when we refer to why we are interfering and why we are getting involved radically in what we call Vienna talks with the 5+1, is there's a lot of things that scientists in nuclear and plasma technology have not understood, especially in nuclear proliferation. And we want to open that door for the scientists to understand, to open up the new avenues and fields of knowledge, which gives man energy resources that we never knew existed. We never had a comprehension of. We never knew about the gases. Now, in past 5 years, 10 years, we open up. And with the new space technology, we open another dimension. But first, we need the approval of governments, because there is a very misconception by the world population about nuclear industry. By many of you, many of the common people, nuclear industry has stopped and nothing is happening. But you're so far wrong. At this moment today, to build a nuclear reactor, we have now in Hinkley 3 known in England and 2 more online in the UK. It costs around about $13 billion. And the governments have hidden these behind the curtain, not much talked about. But today, operationally, we have about 420 nuclear reactors around the world. And everybody thinks that the nuclear industry has stopped. No way. Today, as we speak, there are 15 nuclear power stations under construction, which governments are not releasing data. We have 2 massive nuclear, what we call a proliferation built by Chinese, unknown to the West. We don't know what the capability is, why China is building these 2 huge reprocessing plants of proliferation. And this is part of what we call adding to the plasma of the technology in the nuclear. If you listen to all my talks, I continuously refer to nuclear plasma technology. The nuclear plasma technology, which when we open up, will change the history of energy consumption on this planet, and does not need $30 billion investment. And one of the reasons we see today, we have 50 nuclear power stations, mainly on PWRs and advanced gas-cooled reactors of the French system, are under construction. And if you multiply it by 30 billion by 50, it's 1.5 trillion spent by governments today on nuclear industry. No such investment has gone to power stations, coal power stations, or any other. The government's investments in nuclear industry, we have 50 more under consideration and financing to be built by 2040. And we have 300 sites under consideration for new nuclear reactors to be built. In total, at the moment, we have about 420, 430 operating nuclear reactors around the world. By mid this century, we'll have over 700. But the governments learned from Fukushima. Government learned how oppositions were drumming up. Now they're doing it quietly. Nuclear industry is on ever-growing rates that never knew. Russians and the Chinese and the Americans are extending the life of the reactors, which are supposed to be shut down in this decade by 20 years. And what are we going to do with all this waste? They're not telling us. They're not. The only country who's put a halt on nuclear industry is Germany. Japan is building more. In America, you have a number of nuclear reactors under construction. And the consideration is that nuclear industry will be 10% of the power generation around the world by 2040. And why are we going this way? And this is part of our discussion in Vienna talks. Our next generation have to shut down 700 reactors. Into mid next century and the century beyond that, our children and grandchildren will suffer from what is happening now. And this is part of the proposal we are putting on the table. Total halt, education of the whole nations, and in a way, curbing the nuclear technology into a nuclear plasma technology with no waste, with no harms, with no colossal costs. Something which we kept away from public, and now as part of our pressure on the Vienna talks, will we make it more commonly known, is that the pressure on Iran to be stopped, to become a nuclear, is because Iran become a supplier into this chain. And they don't want Iran to be. The 5+1 sanctions is entirely 90% is to stop Iran becoming part of the exclusive club of making money out of nuclear. And so we say, you keep it. We introduce a new technology as a nuclear plasma technology, which is space technology, and we share it with everyone. In the past, all the riots we saw, all the problems we saw, people on the streets opposing nuclear, this literally bypassed by closing down on radio, television stations, speaking about it, not showing anything, and building 50 nuclear reactors today in 19 countries. It's not anymore China, Russia. There are 19 countries today, between them building 50 nuclear reactors.
Mr. Keshe, that goes against the wishes of the people.
Pardon?
I think that goes against the wishes of the people.
People don't know. We have Hinkley 3, which is called, when I was a student, and then I worked with nuclear fuel, I worked on Hinkley 1 40 years ago. At that time, we had problem with Hinkley 1 panelings, which could not be so for nearly 20 years with Hinkley.
And we have a lot of nuclear power stations which are operating, which were faultily built.
What do you mean?
In Europe, you mentioned it from a couple of years ago.
We are not getting what we want from nuclear industry. It's a cartel. Nuclear industry has become a cartel. And Americans see Iran breaking into their piece of cake. But they don't tell the world. We open this in public gradually. Why there's such a huge pressure? Because Iran become a cleaner. They don't want Iran to become a cleaning of the wastes. And then they go into plutonium proliferation, which means surplus energy, you add to energy, to material instead of reducing. And this is part of the thing that our advice has been to walk away from all this altogether, introduce a new technology and go back in past 5 years, 10 years. I keep on repeating nuclear plasma technology, not the nuclear industry. With 30 billion, just check the internet. Hinkley 3 is costing British public $30 billion or 23 million pounds. The closing book is 30 billion. And this kind of financing comes from where? We don't need it. And one of the biggest opposition to Keshe Foundation by the Western and other countries is that these kind of monies cannot be spent. We walk away from it, and we don't want it because it creates temporary jobs today. Well, next generation will try to find a solution for the new nuclear problem. And where are we going to find the finances for 300 nuclear reactors, which are on the design table? 50 is getting completed, 100 will be done by 2050, finance and started. And then another 200 to come operational in the next 50 years. But nobody knows anymore. As far as public knows, nuclear industry is on the back leg, nothing is happening. Nuclear industry has never been more active and financed than today.
And as you have pointed out, Mr. Keshe, the people are not getting the training to operate these facilities in the right way.
We don't have. We do not train nuclear physicists anymore to be able to understand.
There should be special courses for.
They used to, British, French still do to an extent. Chinese extensively train nuclear physicists for themselves. But as a whole, nuclear engineers courses around the world are not the way they used to be, because they can't keep it. You got to understand what we call victimization is part of it. And nuclear industry is very, very, very much now in the hand of Westinghouse and a French company developing gas-cooled reactors. Hinkley 3 is a French system, because our advanced gas-cooled reactors, what we call the carbon fiber, I used to call them, never worked for the British. We moved into the what we call honeycomb French system. But one of the reasons we are pushing for the new space technology is we don't need this. Public is not aware. More money has spent on the 50 nuclear reactors which are under construction than is spent on the 450 which have been built. The figures are colossal.
No wonder they want the people shut down and in their homes.
There is more money spent on the nuclear industry today on building than has ever been done before. And this has to be, it has to come to a position that do we carry on with the matter state of nuclear, or do we move into the plasma state of nuclear?
Well, they can only hide it for so long.
It's not hidden. It's not hidden. It's in public. It's reported by IAEA on an annual basis, but they don't let it come into the news.
IAEA is not, the general public. Once the general public finds out, then it's going to be.
But the general public does not. How can I put it? They have made it in a way that general public has no interest into it. We are not talking, before was French and the British and the Americans were building or having nuclear reactors. Now 19 nations are involved. Literally today are building on their lands. Singapore is getting heavily involved. nations which never had nuclear power before. And then this is part of the future control. Up to now, you control the oil. You don't say you don't do what we say. We do not give you, or we don't let you to refine your bars or nuclear material. Iran is a big option for cleaning up, and they don't want a competition. This is a gangbang job, which public are not aware of. Part of the pressure on Iran proliferation and everything else is to stop Iran becoming another guy who takes a piece of cake. It's exclusivity under cover of sanctions. And we walk away from it.
Deception all around.
Yes, they're eliminating another player or trying to. And I was so amazed to hear you say that for man, this nuclear technology is rather new. But you said for us, this nuclear plasma technology is a billion-year-old knowledge and technology.
There is so much knowledge to be released, but at the same time, the human brain has not the capacity to decipher all of it at the moment. You got to go back to understand that the British know what is to come with the Keshe Foundation technology. They knew from 1980s, long before we established the Keshe Foundation. In 2004, British government exactly knew what is to come with the new plasma technology. It's a combination of governments trying to block a technology that does not allow it to come up, that they can do what they like. It's what you call, it's the process of new, simpler technologies with less danger, with no nuclear radiation, has to be an option. And this goes back again, the question asked about molecular plasma, molecular gas. If you allow one gas within the plasma to be extended to reach the other one in the strength to open up, the energy you release is unbelievable. But this is the knowledge which we have to gradually release.
If the talks in Vienna don't go according to how you wish, what options are on the table?
We will take in different course and direction of work, totally. The Vienna talks are, as far as we are concerned, the sanctions will be removed very quickly in different shape or form. We expect the opening of the Iranian embassy in Washington within the next 3 to 6 months. If everything goes according to what we planned.
Am I correct in something that I read in the last day or two, that more sanctions have been put on Iran?
They are trying to, but on the other hand, we expect sanctions against Keshe Foundation very soon. We are prepared for it. We are sitting back watching it. But we will release technologies which paralyzes the Western communication within seconds. We release technologies which paralyzes the whole of aircraft industry. All the airports will come to standstill. Nobody will fly. And this is not a weapon technology. This is a way till the nations agree peace. Grounding mankind is a one way to force mankind to peace talk.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I remember you referring to it as the enforcement of peace.
There are ways to enforce peace, and there are ways to do it as on a scientific basis, not to harm, but at the same time push the pressure to understand, not to accept. If we go to push pressure to create sanctions, then we have a problem. But if we push for them to understand that there is a new era, new conditions, new understanding, new technologies, it's different. We have to wait another 3 weeks. On the 3rd of August, the new Iranian government comes into position, and we have to see what is the plan by the new government and what is the response by the Americans. You got to realize United Arab Emirates, Saudis are getting access to nuclear industry, building nuclear power plants. Why oil-rich nations are investing in this way? They can buy a turbine, gas reactors, or heavy fuel gas, what they call burners, and use their waste. China is pushing heavily towards nuclear industry, amazingly heavy.
First time I've heard this, even though you scan all the different news medias, nothing there about any of this.
No, because two Chinese advanced, what we call breeders, are expected to be completed in 2023. And Chinese are investing heavily. Britain has one construction to be completed by 2023, 26 loaded, tested. 2 more are online, on design table, completed, finance is getting organized for it. French are building new. Americans have about, I think, 3 or 5 under construction. United States are building nuclear reactors today.
And we do want to go to Danilo, but why would they be going for depopulation and creating so much energy at the same time?
Depends what you call depopulation.
Okay, just the Western, Germany, United States, so on.
We got to watch what is happening, but the energy has to go through a new technology and new dimension, and not through the nuclear industry the way it is today. Maybe we are getting pushed to abandon this planet, that if the nuclear reactors start going off, there is no more to live. Maybe we have to abandon this planet because of failures in the nuclear industry. Ukraine. We had Chernobyl. Part of Europe is still uncultivated, cannot be cultivated on. We have Fukushima, which are pushing people back on the ground. Doesn't matter what happened to them because the country doesn't have enough landmass to support. What's the next? What is going to be next?
Okay, anyone else want to add or let us know the score of the match that's going on? Is the match going on now, Alex, that everyone was talking about? I know you won yesterday.
You think I got nothing better to do?
Can you think you can look over at the television for a moment?
Yeah,
It's
the
still
score's
1-1,
tied.
don't worry.
Everybody in this room, everybody knows.
The score is still 1-1 till the last minute, you know.
All right, there goes half the crowd now.
It's going into overtime.
And like I said, we're going to have these, we're still going to continue with sports, I'd say, and other means of pleasure on this planet. So, but it's going to be turned into a win-win situation in some manner of speaking, where both teams, for putting on such a beautiful performance, will be elevated. And if we can just get away from this winning and losing idea, that somebody has to win for, or somebody has to lose for someone else to win, is really, we want to have a win-win. And that's why I said the BRICS is trying to achieve that. And I think there'll be some other programs here so that nobody gets dejected after putting their heart and soul into a match or a game or whatever you have in these events. And they're just doing their best and they'll all be rewarded and congratulated. That's the way I see it. I don't like this win-lose. They get so dejected after the game and so on that they could have done this and the coach is screaming and, you know, but let's just put on a beautiful performance for everyone to enjoy the beauty of the man and what he's doing on the field. I don't know how you actually get away from that, but I'm sure there is a way, or maybe keeping no score, just play for 2 hours and let's see, let's just enjoy it.
Mark, hi, it's Dean here. Can I ask Mr. I don't know if Mr. Keshe will want to answer this question, but I can certainly ask a question.
Be distracted, Dean.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is, because I know he loves football. Mark, it's to do with B6, B9, and Mr. Keshe in the intro that you played. In the
6 and 12?
B6 and 12, yeah. 6 and 12, sorry. He said that we need a range of plutonium. Now, going back to the debate about the nuclear reactors and all these nuclear reactors being built around the globe, around the world, the true meaning of it, obviously we know that it's not all used for just energy. There are byproducts and these are used in various different ways. Would one of the ways be for space travel? Is it a fuel that is being used in the matter state? And this is why there's a bit of a race to get all these nuclear reactors up and running. Would this be something in the background that maybe the public are not supposed to be aware of? Or
Nope.
Nope. Thank you, Mr. Keshe, for answering that.
The knowledge of nuclear in the space is very limited. And we have nuclear-based satellites already in space, initially initiated by the Russians, but these are for just running daily energies. The nuclear industry, in the way now it is said, is totally primarily what we call energy-based. But there are two reactors, which is a big concern at the moment internationally, is with Chinese, which are not built for power stations. They are built to produce plutonium. There's a specific way you have to design your system to produce what we call upgrading or increasing the what we call purity. And primarily in energy production, we get some plutonium. It can be cleaned out, but at the moment it's totally for what we call civilian base. Very soon, if China goes the way they are going with these two nuclear base, they will have equal nuclear warheads in the United States. And it's just matching time.
Mr. Keshe, you said that you said this many times that we have the technology to make this supersede this technology. So why are they still plowing ahead with this old thought pattern of destruction, of gaining an advantage through decay and as I said, destruction? Why this still?
There is not why, it's just that the mentality of world leaders is to govern and to be on top at any cost.
And is that on a is that because once people, as we know, we say about the children, these people that reach these positions, is that on a individual level that they need this attention, they need this, as I say, they have so much money that the next thing is just to have control and power? Is this on a physical level with the person, or is this on a more of a group soul position amongst certain individuals?
Each person has his own reason. If you look at the life of Bill Gates, he was trying to be better than his father. If you read his life story, if you read the life story of what you call
Trump?
The Apple guy, was more or less the same. And every person has his own reason. People of incompetence find themselves in a position that they try to prove something to themselves or to whoever they thought was the reason for it. This is one of the biggest problems we have.
How does that affect humanity, though, Mr. Keshe? Because as we know through this technology, nothing is particularly right and nothing is wrong, and everything is an experience. So mankind needs to go through this experience through these souls that need this condition that we all have to, in a matter state, we have to be subjected to. Is this part of
I want to ask you a question very simply. If you can answer it, then you go on to the next step.
Okay.
What has been the effect of Hitler on humanity? Or what has been the effect of going further back, Genghis Khan? Or go before them? Or what has been the effect of local rulers?
Very big changes of condition, Mr. Keshe.
They change a few people or a lot of people, and they have to stand the consequences of it. This is part of how we are perceived to understand the cycle of life. I was explaining to one of the knowledge seekers today the history of World War II and Japan. Japan had nothing to do with World War II. But how we saw the empire changing and how abusive that empire has been. If we count the horrors of the Hitler on the Western Europe, because Second World War wasn't the Second World War. The Second World War was a European war, nothing else. Hitler, who wanted to rule the whole of Europe. And then they escalated to become a world war. Even the First World War was the same. It's a European war. European made it glorified to be the world. Japanese were never involved in the Second World War. Not by a long, long shot. The war between Japan and the United States had nothing to do with the war in Europe. But they linked it, and with it they killed millions. The war between Japan and the US was primarily on defending China and then trying to get as many islands back, which producing rubber. Nothing had to do with anything else, but we've been faced and fed that way.
Mr. Keshe, the Second World War, the war still going on now. It's not in physical terms like we've seen with bombs and things, even though that does happen or has happened. But the war is still going on for humanity, and it's bigger than it's ever been, and it's killing vast amounts of people in physicality daily, not only through this situation in these moments, but also many other factors that are all coming into play that have all been mentioned tonight about the destruction of the watercourses and everything else that goes on. But this is part of the structure of this planet now. And to clean up the mess, it's going to take some time.
Always has been. Always has been. The physical working of this planet has created many conditions for its inhabitant, not just us, but some people make or try to take advantage of it at the time and place in their own favor. We have always been conditioned with the behavior of this planet and the life of its citizens. And if you look at it, the structure of this planet is ruthless. Look at the earthquakes, look at the volcanic eruptions, look at all the other things which this planet continuously puts its citizens under. And so the man there is the same. You got to go back, and what do we say? Man became what we call the way man is when he discovered the fire. But how did he discover the fire? From strike of the lightning on the earth. And he's seeing the same. It's the evolution which we go through, and the way we produce what we call food or energy for ourselves. The structure of this planet is upside down, but man has learned from his home.
Do other planets go through this internal combustion of of learning, of experiencing
Continuously, the whole universe is on the curvature of learning. They're always on the curves of learning, different things, different ways. As I've said many times, even the creator is learning from the behavior of his own creation. It's just that we have to understand how we decide and how we allow others to decide for us.
So the consciousness of man, when will it ever come to a position where the conscious thought changes and becomes peaceful, other than signing a physical piece of paper. How do they sign? How do these souls get to the position where they sign with their soul in physicality?
Partially is commitment, if you remember it. Partially is understanding and comprehending what peace means. It's an art to keep always remembering what you sign yourself into.
What did we sign ourselves into, Mr. Keshe?
Mankind in his DNA and his RNA has committed himself to killing, destruction, and stealing. It has chosen this path and is ingrained within the structure of his life.
So the only way we're going to change it is through your teachings of elevation.
No. The only way we're going to learn is to restructure this human being.
So you said human being.
Yeah.
As one. We with inside ourselves as one need to change the being.
Yes, in a way we have to learn to bring the change about. Well, it depends what we tolerate to accept. We have ingrained that killing animals and eating them, it's the correct thing, so we do, it doesn't matter what. Because now it's part of our RNA and DNA. Eating plants and calling them whatever is there. Why don't we, from the beginning, from the time in the womb of the mother, don't tap into the energy which is more outside than inside? We have pre-programmed ourselves to what they call, it's okay, you can kill. Because everybody else does it, and if you don't do it, you need it. What about if you become to the point of giving so much that you become what we call humble enough to receive?
So with this position of being able to receive, the one being needs this thought, which is all of us, which is as one. So and you said in the past it takes one to define this position, and there's many knowledge seekers here that have a very beautiful knowledge and souls that are have been taught by yourself incredible knowledge. So any one of them has the position to be that being that can make the change. I take it by that space gap, then there's more to be said on that matter.
I think someone just scored a goal.
Yeah, so it's got to that position now, Mark. Is it got to penalties yet, or is it?
I don't know.
Yeah, got to that position. Yeah.
I don't know if Mr. Keshe finished or not. He did mute his microphone rather quickly there.
Yeah, there must have been a
Might have
goal or
gotten
something.
an interruption or a phone. Here he is.
No, sorry, just tapped on something else. the reality of our time is the change in the structure of the man from inside. You can change the RNA through the energy fields of the soul of the man. That without RNA, we can change the DNA or the physicality of the man in that dimension. Ask yourself one question, and I put this one to clergy a long, long time ago. And maybe this is a question we have to put to humanity. And maybe if you find an answer to it, you will find answer to biggest mystery of life in the universe. For 1 second, 1 instance, for 1 moment, if we seal your lips, that you cannot drink, you cannot eat, you cannot speak no wrong. Would you die? Or you step back within your thoughts and go within your soul and find a way to absorb energies from the universe, from your environment. That you don't need that mouth to eat another entity, to destroy another life for you to survive. Would the urge, would the need to survive will be that much that within the cycle of your life, you go back to become humble enough to receive energy from the universe that you'll never kill again. Because you find a way to tap the universal energy. If we don't panic that our lips is shut, we cannot eat anymore. Our ears is locked that we cannot drink anymore. Our lips is locked that we cannot talk anymore. And in that time of contemplation, we go to our soul. Instead of panicking, we find humbleness, we find servitude. Then would we receive energies that they feed us, that what our body needs to survive.
Like a rock?
Not necessarily. You can still walk, you can still live, you can still love, but it stops you from committing that step which separates humanity from the rest of the universe. The
Mr.
biggest
Keshe, when
role
you
for the man
sorry,
is
Mr.
love.
Keshe, well, you
Yeah.
just said humanity, but it's not just humanity. There are our vertical friends, horizontal friends, many that still feed by mouth.
Yes, but I'm talking about if we do, if you do, we all do, because this is the way the life is on this planet. If you look at it, the vertical people don't kill. They create a condition to absorb energy from the amino acid, which is within the structure of their life. In so many ways, you can go one step further. If you manage to absorb the fields of the environment, even by amino acid, which you create instantaneously on your body as an energy plasma field, would you go to that extent that you won't eat anymore?
Ultimately, through the amino acid, the plants eventually eat us. Not eat us, but we're part of, because we eat them in physicality, but in the end, our physical bodies and ourselves go back to the earth. And so effectively, we are consumed by the plants, by our vertical friends. So they have that structure within themselves, which is a feedback loop of the whole of us. So we're all connected that way.
Just ask yourself, just ask one simple question. What happens if you lose your mouth? You remember that old song from Cat Stevens, huh? It says, if I lose my mouth.
It's,
you remember that song?
I do, yeah. It's
What happens if we lose our mouth? We cannot eat. Do we panic or die? Or is this a way to go within in the soul of the man and find a solution to absorb energies and that we stay alive, or at least in the dimension of comprehension and control?
So would this be the same, Mr. Keshe, as you said before, that when man goes into space without a space suit and takes that step outside and becomes a new, in a new condition, you wouldn't need a mouth then, and would you breathe? We've not experienced that yet. Well, maybe we have, but we haven't in our knowledge that we have. But
We
maybe
have it at the beginning stages of life in the womb of the mother.
Yeah, true, very true.
We have no mouth. We access it through energy within the field. We got to go back. Humanity most probably had to go back to the levels of the understanding of life, and simultaneously find out what happens if he loses his mouth and he can't talk. Then you have to communicate with someone. You cannot talk with the essence of your soul, your knowledge, your energy within you.
Then it wouldn't be like this physicality, different light body or
Why
something.
not? It can't be. There is no reason not to have this. You see, the half of the life of the man, 90% of the reason man dies, or most of it, is because of his mouth. If you learn to absorb energy from the universe or environment, you don't need to eat. You don't have a digestion system. You don't have the kidneys. You don't have the liver. You don't have the intestines. You don't have pancreas and liver and the rest of it. So your biggest killing machine is the cancer of these organs, or what goes wrong with these organs. So if you manage to absorb energy through fields of the universe, you don't need the digestion system. So you automatically live longer, because cancers mainly applies to these parts of it, except your lung or your mouth or whatever.
Sorry.
And secondly, you don't consume so much energy. We use, out of the 2,000 calories a day, more or less 1,500 of it is used for digestion system and the life inside it.
I told you before, I had a vision. I can go somewhere sometimes, very little, but I learned from there. I can see 360-degree everywhere that time, and I feel there is no hunger and everything. But when I come back in this body, how can we maintain that? Hello?
Listening.
I'm not hearing anything.
We are listening to what you're saying. You see, the biggest problem for man has been to consume, to move, to consume, to position itself, to consume, to live, and to consume, to what we call be able to survive. We need to learn not to consume, but to connect. And there's a big difference between consuming and connecting. You still can have the energy from the lamp. If you connect to the lamp and you need it, and he can give it to you. You don't need to eat the lamp. You don't need to consume it. You got to remember this, always I say about the orange in a cup. Sometimes you have to become a cup, and sometimes you are the orange. You could be a cup to when you need, and you become an orange when somebody else needs you. But you don't need to take your life. And you don't need to take your life. The teachings are gradually going in that direction. How we feed ourselves. How we come to the point that we don't need to consume, but we connect.
Is this a gradual process, Mr. Keshe? Will this be a filtering process for humanity, or will this be for some that have gained the knowledge and gradually do this
You can do it in 1 second.
But most of humanity would not like it.
How do you know?
In this moment, because they don't understand.
How do you know the child who's dying of hunger on the streets of Delhi will not prefer that?
I cannot speak for them. I can only imagine.
We cannot. Man's greed is so much. Man's greed is so much. What do you want? What do you expect from what you have and what you get? What are we fighting for?
It's a really wonderful thought of could change the whole condition on the planet just by exactly what you've just spoken about. With a few of the children could be have this condition. I know this will not, it would not be like this, but it's a thought that would be would change the condition for many souls. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Majority will be love it because nobody wants to kill in their heart. I know. I feel that.
Just imagine you lose your mouth. and you cannot eat, you cannot drink, and you're in the desert. You panic or you become humble. Not giving up to live, but humbleness in a way that allowing that energies that you have feeds every grain of sand in the desert, and you become humble at that. It's the same if you leave the man, give him the mouth, give him the whole digestion system, but let him loose in the space. There are no cows to kill and there is no air to breathe. And there is no one to talk to because the voice of the man cannot be heard in the deep space or in a small or vacuum space. You die. Or you find a solution to become humble enough to receive from the energy of the universe and survive the span of universe for thousands and millions of years. But you're floating. Maybe you enter somewhere, maybe you land on a meteorite, call it home, the new home, like in a boat in on the oceans. What are the outcomes? What are the consequences?
That's opening up many thoughts and many unlimited possibilities, Mr. Keshe, as we know there are.
Yeah, but ask yourself one thing. If you throw a man into space and he is get adapted very fast to be able to live by the energies of universe, and then we save him after, let's say, 100 years or 20 years or 2 weeks. He was living without needing to, and now he's got to convert back into, do you think he will do? And what will be the consequences of it for him? Just 1 second and try to practice not to breathe, not to drink and not to eat, and try to tap into universal energy.
Become the space gap, Mr. Keshe, that energy flow, that yeah, that space gap.
Man has to decide.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GANs processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.